Hey guys, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here. And today I want to talk about Google and YouTube, specifically YouTube, because YouTube is not in the freedom of speech business, nor does it have to be, and a court ruling yesterday confirmed that, and I think there's going to be some long-term ramifications of this. And here's what's going on. Now, multiple sources are reporting on this, but to quote directly, the Engadget article that I read on this, and I quote, Dennis Prager, a conservative radio host and YouTuber who runs the channel PragerU, sued the tech giant in 2017. He accused Google of being biased against conservatives by putting age restriction on his content and blocking third parties from running ads on his videos, which feature conservative viewpoints on topics like abortion, gun rights, and Islam. Now, as you know, I am not going to get political here. These are simply the facts on the ground as being reported by multiple sources. Now, Prager argued that since Google runs YouTube as a public forum, more on that in a bit, it should be subject to First Amendment scrutiny. Now, PragerU specifically, in their lawsuit said that YouTube reduced its viewership and revenue with, and I quote, arbitrary and capricious use of restricted mode and demonetization viewer restriction filters. PragerU also claimed it was targeted by YouTube because of its, and I quote, political identity and viewpoint as a nonprofit that espouses conservative views on current and historical events. PragerU further claimed that Google's, quote, regulation and filtering of video content on YouTube is state action subject to scrutiny under the First Amendment. While Google is obviously not a government agency in any way, shape, or form, PragerU pointed to a previous appeals court ruling to support its claim that, and I quote, the regulation of speech by a private party in a designated public forum is quintessentially an exclusive and traditional public function sufficient to establish that a private party is a state actor under the First Amendment. PragerU also claimed that YouTube is quote-unquote a public forum because YouTube invites the public to use and engage in freedom of expression, and because YouTube representatives, and this is interesting, called the site a public forum for free speech in testimony in front of the U.S. Congress. Now, here's what it all came down to. The initial ruling by a U.S. District Court judge dismissed PragerU's lawsuits against Google and YouTube, and that went to the U.S. Court of Appeals and to a 3-panel judge that upheld that initial decision to keep it dismissed. And to quote the judge panel, I quote, despite YouTube's ubiquity and its role as a public-facing platform, it remains a private forum, not a public forum subject to judicial scrutiny under the First Amendment. And so my thoughts on this are actually quite a bit. Obviously, I think that PragerU and Dennis Prager, and I don't know much about them, to be honest. I think I've seen his videos pop up in a Facebook feed at some point, but I don't know much about them. I have no doubt that, assuming they've got the deep enough pockets, they will probably take this all the way to the Supreme Court, and we will actually have precedents set here in the United States on this specific issue. And I can understand PragerU's position on this in terms of YouTube being a public forum. Literally anybody over the age of 13 with an internet connection can create an account and start publishing or watching videos. But YouTube is a privately owned company. They are owned by Google, which is owned by Alphabet, which means they have latitude to run their site as they see fit, and that could include them in, let's say, injecting their beliefs in politics into that forum. And obviously that is the antithesis of what Prager and PragerU has been arguing here. Now, this whole thing, I think, really underscores the debate that we are having society-wide on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, etc., as in terms of, are these actual public forums or not? Because anybody can go and sign up and do this. Should they be regulated similar to, let's say, a public forum that is put on by the government, where essentially minus illegal things, it's no holds barred. You can say anything. Or do they have the ability to filter this? We are looking at the 2020 election, something I've talked about and written about quite a bit. And a lot of people have taken the Facebooks, Twitters, and YouTubes to task for not filtering out things like fake news, Russia propaganda, and all that kind of stuff. But if they are also a public forum to give you the ability to publish whatever you want, then do we have to take that bad with the good? I think this is a question that we really need to have a serious debate on and come up with an answer, and then apply law to that, for technology is needed. Now, the other thing here that we're also seeing is alternatives to YouTube and other social media basically pop up in the last few years because there has been an understanding, at least let's say in the conservative community, from everything that I understand, that these companies are basically against them. Let's say it's their corporate philosophy, whatever that is. And so alternatives to this, where they say we're not censored here, we have free speech, we can do whatever we want minus illegal things on smaller sites, and here we are. So what this means for the future is, I think, a bifurcation in social media based on political lines. And I don't necessarily think that's a good thing, because as we continue to compartmentalize discourse, and you basically have a confirmation bias that Google helps reinforce with its search filter and all of that, you start ending up getting articles, statements, and let's say thought leadership from, let's say, your belief system. And it's very hard to break out of that and see the other side. And so I think that as we are talking about discourse, we should have the ability to openly discuss things from, let's say, two different political sides. And, here I am stuck in the middle with you, and it becomes a very interesting thing. But as we bifurcate, our social media and our thought leadership into two separate camps, and very few seem to be crossing that line, and we can see it in news media and other things. I mean, this is, the Fox News versus MSNBC kind of debate and all of that. And again, I'm not getting political here. This is just the landscape that we are living in. I don't care what side you're on at the moment. It's something that we have to really understand, and it's something I think that we have to address, because sometimes tough conversation requires sometimes feelings being hurt, or it requires, people to be sometimes offended. And that's fine, providing we are doing it in a rational, logical, and, let's say, positive manner. And by virtue of the internet giving you, let's say, anonymity when you need it, oftentimes that upbeat or positive manner where we are simply debating because I disagree with one thing and you disagree with me, loses that rationale. And I think stuff like this, where we have, let's say, a platform that has the ability, because it's a privately held organization, that's what the courts are ruling, to be able to censor or demonetize or do whatever it wants based on its political views while it's its right. I think it's contributing to a little bit of this bifurcation, a little bit of this polarization that we are continuing to see. And I think that's something that we need to combat. Humans will never come together, as one and agree on something, unless we can have open debate. And you know what? Sometimes we're not always going to get the way we want, whether it's a government ruling or whatever, and vice versa. So here we are. Those are my thoughts on that. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, and so let me know. But I think we are going to see some huge ramifications coming out of this, and I'm very curious to see where this goes up the U.S. legal system and all the way to the Supreme Court, which is where I assume it's going. So that is your news of the day, and I hope you guys have a great Friday. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter, and please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well, where I don't think I'm demonetized because I make no money on YouTube. And as always, stay safe and stay online. Thanks, guys.